Smoking gun. What does that expression mean? Where does that come from? Do you know? A smoking gun is quite literally that. When somebody and they're holding the gun and it's still got the smoke, they've just fired the gun. And the crowd and the witnesses, and they see them, and the police come up, and they've got it, and they remove the gun from their hand. They've got a smoking gun. They've just fired it. This is where this comes from. But this is a very literal thing. On a professional hit, the caliber will be a .22. It will be to the back of the head, and the gun will be left at the scene. Quite literally. On the absolute highest levels of we're going to get this person. It's not what you think, and it's a sniper, and it's from this crowd, and we're going to pin it on this whole guy. They'll walk up to you in broad daylight in New York City, put two in the back of the head. They will drop the gun right there in that moment, and all of a sudden, everything's changed. If they identify you, if they come up, if they grab you, and if they accuse you, but you are not holding that gun, it's a totally different thing, and a conviction is a very difficult thing to do, which is the reason, from a professional standpoint, the gun gets dropped right there at the scene. Okay. There is something to the smoking gun, though, and I'm tying this as a metaphor, and I realize that's an extreme one, but it's one that you will understand it. I'm tying this to the situation with Conor McGregor, who doesn't open the door. Like, there's no part of me that believes that Conor failed at his whereabouts. There's no part of me that believes that the drug testers showed up to the wrong place. Oh, they showed up over here and he was actually over here. I don't believe that. I believe they showed up to the right place. I believe that Conor was on the opposite side of the door and didn't answer it. That's what I believe. Now, I don't have proof of that, but I have very good evidence, which is just simply understanding Conor's team and their level of organization. The fact that nobody would have been fired, nobody would have been reprimanded, and nobody would have been scolded. My belief is because everybody did their job. That they did let the testers know specifically where Conor was. Now, therein lies a big question. The number one thing that you cannot do in the world of drug testing is do what's called avoid a test. Now, avoid a test doesn't just mean to avoid a test. To avoid a test actually comes with a definition, which is the tester presents himself to you, walks up, catches you, sees you, I'm so-and-so, I need a test, and then you refuse to give it. That is what avoid a test is. If we are separated by a door, no matter how confident that I am that you're on the other side of this door, no matter how confident I am that you heard me knocking, if I don't lay eyes on you, the exact same scenario. Tester shows up. Tester tries to collect a sample. You refuse. If he doesn't put eyes on you, it does not fall under the definition of avoiding a test. That's the number one thing that you cannot do, is avoid a test. All right. So, I ended up in this spot a number of years ago. And there was a brand new agency, and it was called USADA. Now, up until this point, a drug test was an IQ test. If you knew that a test was coming, or you even knew that a test was possible, which at that point in time was up until the day of the fight, you would have athletic commissions, and when you come in and you report on fight week, it could be anywhere in there, and then immediately following the contest, next morning you're on a plane, you're out of town. It didn't work that way, so the USADA style test, which I understand isn't the testing agency now, but that style test of come anytime and no notice. When I get this call, they're in Oregon and they're looking for me. And it was a text message. And I remember receiving this very clearly. And it was that morning that I had taken the supplements. So I call my lawyer / manager and said, what do I do? And he says, well, you cannot avoid the test. It's the number one thing that you can't do. Now, this was all new to all of us. In reality, I didn't have to get that text message. I didn't have to respond to that text message. I didn't have to be in Oregon. I didn't have to do any of these things. USADA was not set up. USADA was an agency that was brought in, but we had not agreed to it at this point. The thing that you guys well know is a pool. The pool did not exist. So, I do respond, and I'm headed to meet this guy. He had flown in, and he's in Oregon. And it's a very big deal that he had flown in. It's called chain of custody. When he's going to collect the biological sample, he is then going to have that in his custody and take that to the lab. It's a big deal. This got tested in an international court over Tour de France. Long story, but it matters that you don't just put it somewhere and ship it off. So I'm going to meet him. I let him know, don't bother getting a cab or an Uber and coming to my house. I know where the airport's at here. The little place over here called Sherry's. It was a restaurant. I said, meet me in the Sherry's. We'll go in the bathroom and we'll do this whole thing. And I'm well aware as I'm headed to this test that I'm about to give him a nuclear sample. Like this test isn't going to just be hot. There's going to be multiple things in this hot test. I'm aware as I'm going and doing this. But you can't avoid a test. And at that time, with limited understanding, I didn't understand that the guy has to put his eyes on you to fall under that category. I had every right to fully ignore him. I had every right to fully ignore everybody for the 72 hours that I needed for this to clear. I share that with you because when I do look back in hindsight, like your mind will go and you have these different ideas, but there was plenty of things that I could have done to simply not give them the smoking gun. Plenty of things that would have been allowable. Like now you'll hear about the clause of whereabouts. That was not a thing then. There was no pool. There was nothing agreed to. And I'm attempting to pick my words because there's only a couple of ways to beat an agency like USADA. And I'm attempting to pick my words so that I don't educate future cheaters. Believe it or not, I don't like cheaters. Believe it or not, I believe in clean sport. Yes, my hypocrisy knows no bounds. I know, or rather, I believe in my heart about clean sport. So when they come to the door and they knock, and Conor doesn't open the door, which is just an image. That's nothing more than an image that I have in my head. But not only do I believe that happened, I believe that happened 3 times. And then it's a matter of how far do you want to go with this game? The tester's got a job. He's quite literally on the clock. He's got, in theory, a family to go home to. But every now and then you run into a tester who's a crusader, who's not going to go home just because he can. He's not going to go home just because he knocked and then waited the allotted 60 minutes and gave the allotted 3 text/phone call courtesy. And he can go sit in his car with binoculars and have his iPhone ready and get ready to film you walking out that door, whether it's 8 hours later, 9 hours later, 10 hours later. At some point, you're going to get hungry. At some point, that guy's coming out. And it's just an interesting concept. Like, what happens then? What happens if that crusader catches it coming out? Do you elevate the story? I was asleep. I had headphones on. I was in a distant room and we were playing music and I didn't hear, where does it go from there? And it doesn't overly matter. The argument never ends until the other side, no matter how weak their argument, until they either concede or until they shut up. And there's no smoking gun, right? I gave them a smoking gun. I knew I was about to hand them a smoking gun. Conor did not. And I don't know that Conor would need to make a statement. I don't know that a statement would ever need to be made on this. There was an issue with confusion. There was resolution, which is 18 months. We're all done. We get up and go home. And it's a peculiar spot. I mean, I can still remember what Brock Lesnar said. It was a number of years ago, and Brock never dealt with it. He never even showed up to his commission hearing. But when he made this big statement after UFC 200 and the Mark Hunt fight, he said, we're going to dig into this till we figure out what in the hell's going on. like he was angry. He was we're going to figure out what in the hell's going on. Right? It was comical. You didn't need, there was never a need for a drug test. He failed the eye test. And of course, to this day, there has never been a statement made, and there didn't have to be. We're done. There was resolution. I can share with you from the drug tester's standpoint, and I don't believe if you did a level of research that, I believe this to be an absolute statement. Anybody that has ever gone down on a whereabouts in the history of ever, the maximum sentence is 12 months. Now, there would be exceptions for somebody that had prior fails. But aside from that, I believe it's an absolute statement that I'm making. Nobody on a whereabouts has ever had to do more than 12 months retroactive, by the way. Conor got 18. And the only time an agency like that would give you 18 is if they don't believe you. This is if you have the ability to actually speak to the actual executives of the testing agency, they will confirm what I just said to be true. But whether they believe you or not, there's not a smoking gun. And I find that to be fascinating. I hope that you do too. And I find the image of them being at the right place at the right time and being ignored. They knock on a door. Somebody doesn't come to the door. I find that to be a very humorous image. And you get 3. You get 3 in a 12-month period, which got exhausted. And here we are.